Real people, real breakthroughs. This is the Psychology of Eating podcast, where psychology and nutrition meet to uncover the true causes of our unwanted eating concerns. Your relationship with food will never be the same. Now, here's your host, eating psychology expert, and founder of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, Marc David.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Marc David, founder of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, and here we are in the Psychology of Eating podcast. I'm with Kathleen. Welcome, Kathleen.
Thanks, Mark. Good to be back again.
Yeah, same here. And we met, I think it was 7 or 8 months ago, and it was one of my kind of favorite conversations and sessions. Maybe that's just because you're you, and we had a good connection. So for those of you new to the podcast, or even if you're not new, so this is a follow-up session, and we're going to just check in with you, Kathleen, and see, how did that session work for you? What happened? And why don't you fill people in first on, your reason for wanting to meet, like what you wanted to work on and how that sort of panned out for you.
Yeah, okay. So my initial need for wanting to meet was to, I guess, see if there was something that I was missing that I couldn't put my finger on myself, because I wanted to lose weight. And in my experience, no amount of diet or exercise was going to make any difference to that. I've tried all that. And having done the coaching certification, I just felt there was something that I was too close to be able to identify myself. So I thought I'd take advantage of the opportunity to meet with you and learn something for myself, but also hopefully help other people out there as well. So that was the initial reason for wanting to have the session with you. And since that session, or even during that session, I had a shift, and it was physical when you were talking about the understanding of where my body first learnt to hang on to the weight through stress and through that traumatic experience as a child with sexual abuse. But when you explained how my body learnt that habit from that point on and was then reinforced with every stressful situation after that to hang on to the weight, it just all made sense. And for me, when you said that, I had a bubble just go right up the middle of my soul. So I knew that was the key for me. So I set about and did all the letters that you gave me to do for homework, which I enjoyed that because I do love to write. And through the personal development training that I've been involved with over the last nearly 20 years, that's involved a lot of writing, and very similar to what you set me the homework tasks to do. What was interesting about that, as I went through writing my letters to each and every brother, talking about the sexual abuse with each of them, as I went through, it had less power. I kind of almost got sick of talking about it, to be honest, but I could feel the energy of it just dissolving, like it just totally lost its power over me. The final spiritual letter that from John's soul back to me took a lot longer, but I get it. I get that it is about soul agreements, and for me, he's given me what I've asked for, and that's not to say that what he did or the way he did it was okay, but I understand that was the best he could do with what he knew, and because it's not on this sort of conscious plane as such, but more that soul agreements, he gave me everything that I asked for, and he gave me everything that I needed, because without that and all the lessons that have followed to reinforce that same message, I've had to learn to be my own best friend, be totally dependent on myself, and above all, love myself no matter what. So had I not had that experience, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation now. I wouldn't have learnt what I've learnt about myself, and I wouldn't have that self-love that I've got for myself, because I just wouldn't have had the need to have it. And because I didn't get that as a child, and because I was always seeking it, I've now come to understand that I was just supported to be there for myself no matter what. So that's, it's an interesting concept to get your head around, that I attracted it, but no, I didn't put my hand up and ask for it in that way. If I had my time over, I'd have it again, because I just can't put enough value on how I feel about being able to love myself to this level. Because it's the key to everything. It's that foundation of being healthy on every level. But if you don't have that self-love and that self-acceptance, then it just, everything else starts to fall apart. And even though I am married, and in that relationship, that's also reminded me that even within the relationship, you still can't depend on the other person to give you those things that we need to give ourselves. And, it's been a trap, because I was in a really good place when I first met Pete, as far as my self-esteem and my self-love. But trying to protect, that sense of self when you're in a relationship and sharing all the time, it's a challenge to not just unconsciously have expectations of somebody else to give something back. And I'm often reminded of that, and I'm grateful for that, because at the end of the day, if I'm not happy, that's my problem, not somebody else's.
How have you been feeling in your body since our session? Is anything different, same?
It's different. My body's responding differently. It's difficult to explain or describe it, but probably within a week, I noticed that my body, physically, to feel my body, the fat felt softer. It was like there wasn't this strong resistance, like over my body. So already I felt like the weight was already starting to rumble and move in ways that it's never felt before. I took up yoga, and it's the Ashtanga yoga. And from the very first session, I knew that was what I needed to keep doing. Like, my body literally says thank you every time every time I finish. And some days I don't even feel like being there once I'm there, but because of the breath work that goes with it, you focus less on the physical, and it just all starts to happen. And, within minutes, like, I'm just feeling a whole lot better. But compared to doing gym exercise, my body's definitely saying, yes, I love this, thank you. Like, don't put me on a treadmill again.
Yeah, when we finally do the kind of movement that really speaks to us and speaks to our body, and the kind of movement that involves breath and involves a sense of embodiment. I'm getting into my body, I'm feeling it, I'm figuring it out. That's a huge victory. I've noticed this, that a lot of people who want to lose weight, and they've been trying to do it forever, and if the weight that they're carrying around, it's the weight you've been carrying is not about food. It's maybe food helped it get there, but the weight, for you, I'm pretty convinced, is just a brilliant form of protection. And when I say brilliant, I mean that because your nervous system figured out we got to protect ourselves here. And the way a small person figures out how to protect themselves is they get tougher, harder, and bigger as best as possible. It makes it makes a female or a male less of a sexual target. And the mind kind of unconsciously figures that out. So the antidote is to start to realize that I'm safe. This world is now, the world is never perfectly safe, but right now you're as safe as you'll ever be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay now. We can relax. I can take care of myself. I can love myself. I'm okay. I'm not in that crazy situation anymore. So when we give our body the signal, you can relax, like you said, like, oh, my fat doesn't feel hard. Like, yeah, we start to relax, and then our natural metabolism slowly comes back. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah, and I've noticed that as well, that often I might think I want to eat one thing, but really when I sort of ask myself, what do I really feel like now? It's going to be something different, and listening to it, just the more I listen to my body and what it wants and give it what it wants, the more it responds differently. And, that digestion and metabolism all feels different. Like, it's like I'm in this open relationship with this thing called my body. It's like, two almost like two people. Like, we sort of run and we commute like with the day and communicate, and it's really interesting how it's all come about and responded. And yeah, I can't say enough at the moment how grateful I am for all this extra weight that I've carried, because I can now see the benefits and what it's taught me, the people that it's connected me with all over the world because of just different networks and through the study, and also with following things like the Gabriel method. Like I'm just having a great time. And I've really got my weight and my excess fat that I've carried to thank for that, because without it, I wouldn't have been continually questioning, well, why is it still here?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think you're describing the fine art and science of being a mature human being who uses life opportunities and life experiences to grow. The good ones, the bad ones, the ugly ones. It's. I wish it was different, but humans, in large part, tend to learn and grow through struggle, and through hardship, and through pain, and through suffering, and through just crazy nonsense that happens to us. We could either become victims, we could either fall prey, we could either become apathetic, or continue whatever harm was done to us. We often then kind of introject that harm. So if somebody harmed me, well, I'm going to just keep harming myself then, because apparently that's what we're supposed to do. And we often embark on a life where we're torturing ourselves in our mind, and torturing ourselves with food, and torturing our own body, and hating on it. And you've turned that around in a huge way. And in fact, you're so many steps ahead of so many people, even who aren't trying to lose weight, but they still haven't found the place where they're in partnership with their body. And being in partnership with the body is kind of fascinating. Like, once you get into it, you realize, oh my goodness, I don't have to be hating this body that I'm in. Okay, I might want to change it. I might want it to look different. But man, is it interesting. And there's all these cool things going on. And there's all these learning opportunities. And you've really tapped into that. And congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I've always, and I don't know why or where from, but I've always questioned. So I've always wanted to understand if something's the way it is, whether I like it or not, why it's that way. And despite even being, punished at school for questioning why all the time, I never stopped asking. And I just, I guess I've also seen victims within and outside of my family, and I couldn't see the point. Like there's been times in my life, like John, I've considered suicide, and it's finding that purpose and to keep questioning why, because like I just have this craving, I guess, to always understand why things are the way they are and whether it can be different. And I've seen people live the life of being a victim, and it doesn't look fun to me, like living in that constant pain and controlled by it, when it's really us that can change it. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. It just made sense to me that if I'm going to stay here, then might as well have a good time and make the most of it and learn as much as I can. So, yeah. And the other thing that's interesting or has helped is I was told about the book The Little Soul in the Sun, and that's where I've kind of come to understand that whole concept of soul agreements and what we're here to learn and why we attract or choose the family that we choose, because they seem to be where we get, our initial learning. So that's, and for a lot of people that I share it with, it's kind of a concept that's a bit out there and a bit weird, but yeah, it's working for me. So
Yeah, well, I want to just mention for listeners and viewers, so the idea of soul contracts. So the concept is that, we're more than a body and we're more than a bunch of molecules that randomly slam together, and there's a greater intelligence behind it all. And that before we incarnate, the we that we are exists somewhere in a more subtle realm, a more rarefied realm, call it the soul realm for lack of a better term. And before we come down to this planet and do our thing and be who we're going to be, there's a little bit of orchestration involved in that. There's agreements, or we might make contracts to have certain experiences that we're going to do and learn and grow. And it doesn't necessarily mean every little thing is predetermined, but there might be some things that we've agreed to that's going to be on the menu of our life. And some of those agreements are to be in situations that, aren't necessarily easy, that aren't necessarily fun, and sometimes might be quite traumatic. So that's the concept. And, I live by that. I came to that on my own and realized other people were talking about it. Even if that's not for you, for people listening in, it's interesting to consider. It's interesting to consider that there's a greater intelligence that's guiding things. And is there a higher perspective other than, woe is me, this horrible shit happened and I'm screwed, and I'm just going to be hating for the rest of my life, or being in pain and suffering, or dealing with the consequences? And there's a way to grow through all that. And soul contracts is a great way to kind of get that. The author Carolyn Mace also writes about this as well. Carolyn Mace, M-Y-S-S is how you spell her last name. She has a few good books. There's also a book out there called Soul Contracts. I forget who wrote it. So wow, Kathleen, what a journey it's been for you.
It has. And, I'd have to say, well, now that I'm in a position and starting to make a career out of my own life experiences, is pretty exciting as well, because I never, even up to a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have considered that I'd be actually using this experience that I've had throughout my life to be able to help other people. And, the blessing in that is that I get to reinforce what I believe in as well on a daily basis, and hopefully help other people, because life's too precious to be sitting around being a victim and having more crap. Really, like, yeah.
Bingo. In life is too precious. I also think, and I know you're saying this, I'm just adding my words, to hate on the body as a way to change it. It's a dead end. What I hear you doing is you're loving the body in a way to let it find its natural place, its natural weight, and from that place, only good things can happen. Really, it's loving ourselves into an experience, particularly when it comes to the body, because there's so much a self-attack against bodies. We kind of pick that up in the media. It's floating in the atmosphere as this viral belief. You should hate your body, judge it, compare it to other people, find yourself coming up short, and just constantly be in a state of I'm not good enough. Ouch! It's too hard. There's a better way. You're doing it, and I want to say congratulations again. And I think you're gonna be a huge light for a lot of people in your own life, in your own practice. I'm really happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is. The other thing I guess I've also found interesting for me to get to this point, if I don't lose more weight, I'm okay with that. If this is how I am, for the rest of whatever time I've got left here, it's okay. Like I'm not wanting to change that in order to be happy anymore. Like I'm healthy and I'm happy with where I'm at, and if more weight drops away, then yeah, that to me that's now just become an added bonus. But I've spent too much of my life miserable and hating on my body to keep doing it anymore. It's just, it doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
And even to the point now where I'm even more confident to stand up and speak up against people who fat shame, which previously I would never have done because I was still ashamed myself. So just to make the comment to people that make those quick judgments that, perhaps some thoughts of compassion for what that person's going through, to have to feel they need to eat so much to be that size, would be far more beneficial than making all these judgments and assumptions that people who are overweight are, lazy and dumb and just sit around eating tubs of ice cream all day and pizzas, because that's not the reality.
No.
So, yeah, it's, and even that feels good to be able to just stand up and say, hey, like, it's not helping. It's not helping the people, and it's not helping the world for us to keep putting so much shame out there.
No, not even close. Not weight hate, not fat shaming, not really shaming about anything, really. It doesn't get us where we want to go. So good for you for really finding that voice and being an inspiration to people. More and more good things are going to come for you. That's how I feel. So thank you for sharing really openly about your life and your journey and your story, because it's you've shared some very personal things in this podcast, and to me that takes a lot of courage. And I know you did it from a place of wanting to share your story so other people might get inspired by it, and I'm inspired by it hugely. So thank you, Kathleen, really.
And thank you, Mark, because you put the opportunity out there, and I'm just so grateful to have had this opportunity to work through it, for myself, and to get to this point. And it's connected all the dots for me from now right back to the beginning of my time, and different things I've experienced in my life, and different memories I have of just even statements people have made. It's all connected up now, and it just, it's a good feeling, and it's a good place to be. But yeah, without you giving these opportunities and the work that you guys all do, it wouldn't be possible.
Well, thank
So
you.
yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Thank you so much. So let's wrap up.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Kathleen. Once again, I'm Marc David on behalf of the Psychology of Eating podcast. As always, there's going to be lots more to come, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. See ya. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for listening to the Psychology of Eating podcast. To learn more about the breakthrough body of work we teach here at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, please sign up for our free video series at ipe.tips. That's I for Institute, P for Psychology, E for Eating.tips, TIPS. You'll learn about the cutting-edge principles of dynamic eating psychology and mind-body nutrition that have helped millions of people forever transform their relationship with food, body, and health.